This is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Scuf Instinct Pro. This is a customizable Xbox Series X controller, which is a flagship premium device from Scuf with a really nice design setup and some wonderful customization options. As you can see here, I've created a fairly interesting, quite in-your-face looking design with the help of Scuf, which includes a number of different highlights: the faceplate, the buttons, the rings, the control sticks, the triggers. You can customize loads of different options separately to create an overall interesting aesthetic. This is an unboxing and review video. I'm going to be talking to you about what this controller is like to use. As I said, it will work with Xbox, and it will also work with Android devices, or at least it'll pair with them, and it will work with PC. And PC is where I am using it for the most part, probably for racing games. And that point is one of note, because the Instinct Pro comes with a number of customization options that include not only the overall design of it, but also the setup of things like the thumbsticks. So for example, you can get thumbsticks in different heights and with different shapes. So they say that most people, for example, will like the taller thumbstick on the right hand side to give you a wider range of aim for FPS games and things like that. Whereas I like the tall one on the left because I'm going to be using it for driving games, so it gives me more control over the sort of turn of the vehicle. But you have options there, so there's loads of different customization options that I'd recommend checking out on Scuf's website, and I'll link to in the description. But as you can see, fantastic, high quality, appealing controller with some nice highlights. Already you get 2 extra thumbsticks included in the box as well. And the thing that I was struck by immediately, obviously besides the controller itself, which is very in your face, was the little tiny design accents. So there's a little bit of what looks like carbon fiber sort of style holographic accents on the thumbsticks, the triggers, and even the USB cable, and I'll show you that in a minute. You'll note a number of different controls on here. For example, there's a mic mute button at the bottom of the controller. So if you're plugging a wired headset into the controller and then using that wirelessly, you can mute your microphone directly on the controller itself. Now this is powered by 2 AA batteries, and they're included in the box, luckily. And another thing you'll note around the back, there's a few little highlights here as well. You'll see that the triggers, for example, are red. You can actually customize both the top and bottom triggers, left and right, to customize the look. I've made some red ones on the bottom triggers but kept the top ones black. There are a number of different options that you can change in there, and it's worth going over those quickly. You can get 45 different colors in the face plates, 4 different colors in the center sync buttons, 4 on the bumpers. The thumbsticks come with 21 different options. You've got different colors for the rings around the thumbsticks as well, the D-pad, the A, X, B and Y buttons, and the grips as well. So there's a high performance grip set up on the bottom of the Instinct Pro to give you a better hold on it. And you'll see some anti-friction rings around the thumbsticks themselves, and you can change the colors of those as well. So you can see there's loads of different options for changing the colors on them. On the back of the controller, you also have these buttons just below the triggers near the housing for the battery cover. I'll talk to you about those in a minute. And then some paddles at the bottom below those, 4 paddles, 2 on either side. Those are customizable. You can customize the buttons. There's a profile switching button below the battery housing that allows you to set up and change between 3 different profiles. Now those switches that you can see at the bottom there adjust the triggers so that you can switch between sort of a hair trigger for instant actuation. So if you're playing FPS games, you can basically make the triggers more like a mouse than anything else, and therefore you can click and actuate really quickly, or you can set them as standard and have a longer length for things like racing games where you want to better control over the acceleration. Now one of the things I want to show you immediately is a little complaint that I have about this controller is the battery housing is held on by magnets, which makes it really easy to get off, which is great but also terrible, because what I found is during use and just playing around with it, I've found that I've knocked that housing off several times now, and that's quite annoying because it's not something you want to come off in your hand while you're using it. That's a small complaint though, which is a very small one over what is outwardly a very striking controller. It has a nice bit of heft to it in the hand, and interesting setup. I'll show you some gameplay later on, but I've been using it for a variety of driving games already, and I found a really nice setup in terms of like the rumble effects. It's quite subtle and delightful, but it's worth noting that you don't even need to have rumble if you don't want to. That's another option in the customization of this controller. So there's plenty of other tweaks that you can make to set it up to your personal preference. What you're seeing is a quite striking design setup here. I was quite pleased with it when I got out of the box. It's very in your face. I wouldn't necessarily go for something quite this insane, but I thought it would look fantastic in video, and I was quite right. On the top, you'll see the Xbox controller button. You can obviously press that Xbox button to turn it on, and there's a button above that next to the USB-C port, which you'll get a close of in a minute, that you can then use to pair. It also has really fast setup with that. Once you've paired it with a device, when you turn it on, it instantly connects, and it's really fast. And I was actually surprised how fast it is. You can press and hold the Xbox controller button to turn it off again as well. As you'll see, the faceplate comes off really easily. You just need to tug it from the top of the controller near where the USB port is. Just a little tug and it comes away really simply, and then gives you access to the underside. Being able to get under there also lets you then swap out the thumbsticks if you want. So you saw there was some extra ones included in the box, and you have a choice of design. You can also see that it's held in place with magnets, so it's really simple to get on and off. You don't have to worry about any extra plastic clips that might snap or get broken. So that's obviously a bonus. You'll see the red rings, they're the anti-friction rings. You can also push those out once you've got the housing off, and you get access to the underside. You'll see a pretty good setup and quality design to the switches. It's also worth noting that D-pads are removable. They don't include an extra one in the box, but it makes me think that you'll probably have some extra options in terms of accessories and things that you can purchase as well there. So really good setup in terms of all the different buttons and the customization options. One thing that I did think when I took the sticks off though was that they felt a bit flimsy, and then compared to something like the Astro C40 controller that I used previously, that felt like it had really good quality thumbsticks. These ones feel a bit cheap, but I think they are nice in that they're strong enough and they're lightweight, so they've got a good design to them. You also have a setup, as I said, in terms of the height, so you can choose between different height options, and also whether it has a concave or domed top design to it, so whether it sits nicely with your thumb or sticks out. Also, obviously, the height difference will be adjustable depending on what you sort of games you're playing. So if you're into FPS games more, Scuf says you might prefer to have the tall thumbstick on the right hand side, so that you have a wider turn angle to be able to turn your character around and quickly snap to targets, whereas you might prefer a short one on the left for movement purposes. And so it's really personal and customable. Well, what you can see here also is that what I was talking about before, kind of like a carbon fiber finish, sort of. It has these hexagonal shapes, holographic in nature, so when you turn it they sort of change. A really nice striking design on the thumbsticks there that you also see on the top of the triggers near the very top of the controller as well, and also on the paddles on the back you might see a bit of that. So there's 4 paddles on the rear of the controller at the very bottom, so you have loads of different buttons, and you can also customize the buttons as well and set them up within the profile, and it tells you all about that in the manual and their various settings, and I'll include information as well in the description so you can find out more. But you can see a close-up of the texture on the control sticks as well. That's mostly on the outside, so the very top of them doesn't have that texture on them, but there's some very nice design accents in here, and you can see a bit more of what I was talking about on the top triggers here in this shot as well. The Xbox button at the top turns it on and off. You can press and hold it to turn it off, and there's a pairing button just above that to pair with different devices. Then you have all the usual buttons in terms of share and menu buttons as well, so easy access for this. The great thing is, because it's an Xbox controller for me, been using it on PC, it's really simple. Steam recognizes it as an Xbox controller, so it immediately is usable in a variety of games, and I will show you some of that action in a minute. You'll also see the rumble sections at the bottom of the controller here, and then a quick look at how it just drops back into place with that faceplate. That is dead simple to do. One thing I have found though is that sometimes it doesn't sit perfectly on one side, and there's a bit of a gap, so that's worth bearing in mind. You might see some of it in these shots. you'll see at the bottom you have the expansion port and 3.5mm jack, and then on the top the USB-C charging port as well. So you can plug it in, use it wired or wirelessly with the Bluetooth connection, and that charging cable is really nice as well. I'll show you a shot of that in a minute. But here you can see the difference in the button colors. Obviously those triggers are red, you can customize that. You can choose from a variety of different colors, both top and bottom triggers, so you can really make this thing stand out. And an underside shot again, and you'll see the 4 paddles, 2 on either side, and that profile button, 3 different profiles that you can switch between, so you can have different setups for different games. Also note that the grip that you're seeing here on the controller, that's textured finish, is only available with the Pro version of this controller, so it comes in 2 different variants. It's also those buttons to switch between the hair triggers on the actual triggers is also only available on the Instinct Pro as well. So if you want those 2 little features, you'll need to pay extra for them. Well, I think they're worth having. Those are nice, those hair triggers, and the buttons are very satisfying to press. There's some really nice setups here. Those paddle switches obviously very easy access because they just sit where your fingers are. So you have loads of different buttons on here and simple to access too. This controller has a good weight to it. I feel like I said that the thumbsticks feel a bit cheap. Overall, the thing has a really good heft and it feels like a good build quality. It also sits comfortably in the hand, and I will say those textured grips are particularly nice for gaming, as I found I've got a bit warm when playing games, and yet it still stays in the hand nicely. Now I'll show you a quick look at the USB-C cable, which might not sound that exciting, but look at that design on there. It's got that holographic hexagonal design on it again. When you turn it, it nicely catches the light and just picks up some of the design, makes for a very nice overall aesthetic, and also just a really nice finish on it. One of the nicest looking USB-C cables I've seen for a device, and a nice addition. Now another thing that Scuf sent is this Exo, which I didn't tell me I was sending, which is basically a cushion, an inflatable cushion that you can use to sit on your lap so that you can then put your hands and your arms on it, and it's meant to improve posture. So I just wanted to give a little shot of this. This is an additional purchase, and at first I thought it was a bit daft. When I started using it, it's actually really good. It folds away into this tiny little bag, and then you pull it out and basically expand it and blow into it. It's kind of like an inflatable neck pillow that you'd get when you're going traveling or something, except it's a lot larger, and it's designed to sit on your lap and then give you somewhere to put your arms and your hands, and therefore not be putting them down and then not slouching. It forces you to sit up a bit more and just gives you a bit more of a comfortable sitting experience while gaming. It's quite unusual. As I said, this doesn't come with the controller as standard. It is an additional purchase, but it is a nice little one with a very soft sort of finish on it as well, in a little bit of inflation, and then you have a nice bit of padding to rest your controller on. Then I went into playing with a controller, and I tried it out with Dirt 5, Grid, and Ghost Runner. So a couple of driving games and like a fast-paced FPS style game. And you can see the results of it here. And as I said, I'm using the large stick on the left because I'm mostly going to be using this for driving games. And that's what I like. I like to play racing games on a controller on PC. And it's easier to use that way, and you get a lot of range on it as well. The buttons obviously having the advantage of the triggers having that long grip on them means that you can then obviously adjust your speed as well. But if you want to switch into an FPS mode, it's really easy. Just flick those switches over and activate the hair triggers. And so I was playing a Ghost Runner as well, just to sort of test out what it would be like in that experience. And I'm not particularly good at this game, but the controller worked really well. I was using an Xbox 360 controller recently, if you can believe it, to play the same game, and the experience is a heck of a lot better with this Scuf controller. It's much more accurate, easier to control, and fast-paced fun. A lot of hilarious fun and frolics with this one. So there you have it. The Scuf Instinct Pro is certainly worth a look. Really nice personalizable, customizable controller with a really high quality finish on it. Nice setup in terms of what you can do with the thumbsticks. Extra thumbsticks included in the box. Simple controls. really easy connection and decent battery too. The only gripe that I have, which is a very small one, is that battery housing just comes off far too easily, and I feel like probably going to knock it off a lot during use. And hopefully you don't find the same issue as me, where I just found that to be a bit shocking and unfortunate. But otherwise, overall, highly recommended. Wonderful addition to a gaming setup. If you like using controllers for playing games, or you're an Xbox player, you're going to love this. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.